This episode of This Week in MMO is brought to you by GameBreaker.tv/deals. Besides all the other deals we've got on the page right now, if you're looking for WildStar, you can pre-order and get yourself 20% off.
GameBreaker TV.
Internet, and welcome to This Week in MMO, episode number 182 from March 28th, 2014. You're watching Game Breaker. I'm Mike Byrne, and today, yes, I'm sorry, YouTube, we are going to talk a little bit about the Elder Scrolls because they talked endgame that they don't call endgame. But on the plus side, we'll also be talking about big things coming up in Guild Wars 2 in April and PvP housing in Rift. All that and more. But first, joining me this week, just like he did last week, I really appreciate you filling the seat for me, Mr. Larry Everett.
How's it going? And just to be fair, it is 20% off the game.
Correct.
You mentioned it. Yeah, not 20% off. You're not going to lose 20% of your weight.
Of your what?
That's me. I could wait or anything, or you're not.
Yes. 20% off of this game, this WildStar game, not
the WildStar.
Not 20% off of Larry Everett.
Well, you did. It was a bit ambiguous the way you phrased it.
Well, ambiguity. Welcome to TWIMMO. Also joining us, writer on GameBreaker.tv, freetoplay.tv, and the entire GameBreaker network, Mr. Troy Blackburn. How are you?
Doing all right. Bringing the sexy back to TWIMMO, baby.
Is that what it is? Is that what you call that beard?
Dude, I've been thinking of what I was going to say when you introduced me for 2 days, man.
So you prepared that?
Yes, I'm very much prepared for this.
Again, I am outnumbered by the beards.
What is up with that? And I mean, it's been 2 weeks since I've been on 2 weeks. You've also done the tour. You've also done the Republic, our tour show, and you've been outbearded there too. I'm just wondering.
No. I was not outbearded on the Old Republic because Laura and I do not have beards.
Well, that's true, but she does outdo you in another area, and obviously, so you have to make up for it.
So I have to. Not only do I have to have a beard, but I have to have a really big beard just to compensate for things. I see how it's going to be. I don't know if I'm going to be interested in doing Republic anymore.
Well, actually, you know what? I should just be glad that the boxes are the same size this time. That's
true.
Really,
that is
there's
true.
No compensation there.
Chat would have gone ape shit had they not. Hey, I know this is This Week in MMO, but can we talk about Diablo 3 just for a minute? Because I'm like insanely addicted. I don't know if you guys jumped back into this with the patch prior to Reaper of Souls or since the expansion. Troy, are you a Diablo 3 guy?
A little bit. I kind of repurchased the game when it went back on sale for $20. Initially at launch, I actually, for the very first time ever, got a refund on a video game because the problems were so bad. But with the patch,
what he's not telling you is that he had to claim to live in Korea to get that refund. He was like, I live in Korea. So are you digging it since the new patch and obviously the expansion stuff? I mean, they fixed a lot. It's a totally different game. It's what it should have been at launch.
Very much improved, and it absolutely is what it should have been from the very beginning because they did not give us what they promised us at the beginning, and it didn't work properly. But after Loot 2.0, man, it's a whole different game. It's a lot of fun to play again.
Larry, you feeling the same way?
I have lost half my guild because of that game. I just thank you, Blizzard, again. I know I'm gonna have to thank you one more time, sometime this summer, whenever you release Warlords of Draenor. So be prepared for that. I will be thanking you again.
I'm guessing Larry's not exactly thrilled with the Diablo 3s.
Unfortunately, it's just not. I have this problem. I have the same problem with MOBAs. I can't move. I can't click to move. I have a real hard time with that. It's just not. It's counterintuitive to me. But I mean,
you're so ingrained in the other direct WASD.
Yeah. Too many first-person shooters. Too many MMOs to. Yeah, WASD is just totally ingrained.
It can make it rough switching between controls.
Oh,
and
definitely.
games like that.
And I know they talked about this on Legendary a little bit, so I don't want to belabor the whole Diablo thing, but I'm like ridiculously addicted to it again, and so it's when I get off of here, I'm gonna go play it.
Really good. I mean, it's been described as one of those games that you get into just so you can smack things around and blow shit up.
Absolutely.
You know? Absolutely. It's great, and for that, I mean, we need those kinds of games. I mean, we shouldn't have to think about every single one of our games. We should be just go in there and just beat the crap out of
It's the
stuff,
summer blockbuster movie, man.
Yeah.
You just go and unplug the brain and just watch Bruce Willis save the damn world for a 950th time.
Exactly.
I've been referring to it in our chat rooms and stuff for Gamebreaker as a Diablo Reborn. And those of you that watch some of the other shows here on Gamebreaker will obviously get the reference there to another MMO. So I'm a big fan. Love it. I'm sorry I didn't mean to bring up a touchy subject for you, Larry. Apparently it's a bit touchy.
It ruined my childhood.
All right, so let's get to Elder Scrolls Online so we can get it out of the way because YouTube is going to yell at me again for talking about it. We are going to do an Elder Scrolls only show. It's coming, but until then, we're going to cover it here on TWIMMO, and it's coming out this week, so it's kind of dumb if we don't talk about it. ZeniMax kind of went through like this winding down phase right before launch. I just pictured like them all in the boardroom. They've got their lemonade, their beverage of choice. They've got chips and salsa and dip. They're feeling pretty good. We got a game. We're ready to go. And then somebody says, "Oh shit, we didn't send out any of that in-game footage yet. None of the movies we made, none of the press materials. We didn't send any of it out." So, like, really quick, they had to write a post. And that's kind of an important part of an MMO. We've talked about it on this show. I think we talked about it a little last week, Larry, is that to us, especially to me, it's definitely worth the price of the box to play it at least from 1 to 50. But that end game is what's going to determine my sub. You know, I feel the box fee is justified, but what about the sub? Pretty important part. I might be wrong. They did mention endgame, except we're calling it veteran content. So now we have what? Endgame.
Let's see. We have endgame. We have elder game. And now veteran
content is their term. Yeah. I think veteran content is at least better than elder game, right, Troy?
Yeah, I believe
that's for the old people. Game and elder game.
Troy, you actually wrote up, and we published it today. You did an overall kind of, all right, this is my experience with the beta as a weekend beta tester, not a steady beta tester in the full-time realms. So just like what a weekend beta tester would be able to feel from the game, and then obviously your concerns for launch, you seem pretty pumped about Elder Scrolls, even not knowing about the end game, and I know you're a PvE guy like I am.
Yes, I am very much a PvE Care Bear, and everything about this game...
Whoa! Hey, I didn't call us Care Bears, and Larry's just rolling his eyes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I knew the day that I sent them money for my Imperial Edition that everything I knew about the veteran content, or whatever they want to call it, was pretty much PvP-centric. But I'd seen enough of the gameplay to know that there was something there for me, and I went in, like you said, just, the price of the box is going to be worth it to at least play through that. That's a lot like I played Star Wars The Old Republic. I just kind of played through the content, accepted it for what it was, the $60 or whatever I gave them, and moved on with my life.
Troy, I don't mean to interrupt here, but Larry's on the show. Don't say anything bad about Star Wars.
I'm sorry. Star Wars is the greatest MMO in history, the first MMO.
Oh, okay, perfect.
I have called off the assassins.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Around. Yeah.
No, but no, I just they haven't given us a lot of details on what we're going to get later on, but what they have given us sounds interesting enough that I'm going to play the game, stick it out, give it a couple of months, and see what they come out with. But I mean, they're really going to need to be rolling out with some more details on what they've got planned for this later on for us PvE players.
Well, they started off with the Cyrodiil PvP stuff, which we've all seen and we've all participated in. Larry's written numerous Elder Scrolls items that included the PvP and Cyrodiil over it massively. They talked about solo play, duo play, small groups, large groups. I mean, they really milked this whole presentation and put a lot into it. But Larry, it makes sense. I mean, Cyrodiil does have a ton to offer, at least. Whether it's executed and well, we don't know, but it does have a ton to offer.
Well, so I mean, I kind of know. I mean, I've been in Cyrodiil. I've played around multiple times. I know I did. I only did one video about it, but I've actually been in Cyrodiil and PvPing multiple times. And in fact, I did it. They gave us level 50 characters at one point and let us go into Cyrodiil to mess around in there, even at max level. And it does have a lot to offer. Cyrodiil is not just, I mean, it is all PvP, but the thing is, there's not just PvP to do in there. There's like bosses and dungeons and things along that line that you can do in Cyrodiil. So it's just with the added bonus of, hey, you could be attacked and killed by an enemy faction at any point. So there's that, and I'm excited about it. I think that the game, but on top of that, besides the PvP stuff, they do have a number of other things that they're bringing to the table as well. The only thing that is probably going to turn people off, at least initially, is there's not a lot of large group stuff.
Right.
We're talking, 8 to 12 people. There's not a lot of things to do with that many people, and that's, I think, besides PvP, and I think that of anything is going to turn people away from the game if they're one of those people that grinds up to max level just so they can do raids or whatever, just so they can do endgame. If they just buzz through all the lower level content just so they can be the best, I don't know, be the first, whatever, those kinds of things.
So me. Thanks, Larry.
So is that what you? I apologize.
No.
I'm not apologizing to you. I'm apologizing to everybody else for you.
Oh, Larry, you and your lens flare. All right, so let me play conspiracy theory here for a minute, because it was, to me, watching the whole presentation and information flow come out, it was kind of weird to see them leading with PvP again. And they've obviously spent a ton of time on it. We've talked about it here, that it is fun, it is engaging, even for somebody like me that isn't generally attracted to PvP. It's very fun, and I like it. But I thought it was weird that they led with this when they're trying to talk about their endgame content and show us things we've never seen before. Am I just reading into things, or did they want to maybe save that PvE stuff as a surprise at the end of this whole presentation piece?
That's a really good question. And to be perfectly honest, I don't consider Cyrodiil to be in-game content per se, only because you can start that at level 10. That's like beginning game content, really.
Right.
When you have 50 levels, that's beginning game content. Why is that? So yeah, I was kind of surprised whenever I read over that blog that there was PvP in it at all, unless it was something brand new, like they were, which they aren't, introducing like instance PvP or something like that, which they aren't doing that. So I don't know why they brought it up. That was kind of strange to me.
Well, that one singular post speaks volumes about what the entire presentation they've given on their in-game content has been since the very beginning. They know what their PvP is going to do. That's the thing that we've all seen and taken part of. And the rest of it, you just really get the impression that they just don't have it nailed down yet. So we're not getting details on that. So PvP, as far as really giving us something with meat to it, that's all they've really got right now.
Which is scary, right? I mean, we're 2 days from early access.
Yeah,
I think it's possible now that they ran into the trap that a lot of MMOs developers do, is that the leveling content will be what people want to do. And there is people, mind you, there's a huge chunk of people that like to do the leveling content. So I'm not I don't want to give the impression that I'm discounting them at all, because they are definitely an important part of the community, and the developers definitely need to cater to them in some way. But there's also the group of people that like to get to end game as fast as they can and do whatever elder game, veteran game, whatever you want to call it, content there is, and it hurts in the long run. It hurts the game because those are the guys that are the loudest on the forums, and they are the next to the PvPers, which are the loudest on the forums. And then there's the PvE guys. So yeah, but at the same time, though, that being said, if you look at the other Elder Scrolls games, the single-player games, I'm not looking at ESO specifically, but if you look at the other Elder Scrolls games, those games weren't about end game either.
No,
really.
No, and I don't feel like they've tricked us on this. They, for the last year and a half, have been explaining that it's a PvP-centric MMO. It's PvP first. Yes, we are going to have PvE content for those of you that maybe are not as into the PvP as others. We will have content for you to enjoy at max level, but first, we're a PvP game. So it's not like they've hid this from us, but we're now, like I said, 48 hours, less than 48 hours from early access, and I still don't know if I'm going to sub after 30 days. That's a bit of a scary proposition for somebody that's not gung-ho about PvP, Troy.
Well, I think that has a lot to do with why these games are starting to call their end game something besides end game. They're coming up with phrases like veteran content, elder game, because it's going to be different. When you say the word end game, you think World of Warcraft, Rift, all those. You run some dungeons, you do your raids, and that's not what they're trying to present per se. And I think that has a lot to do with why they're trying to call it something different. They're trying to change the perception of what that's going to be, so that people don't expect that when they get to the end, because no matter how much you tell people it's not going to be that, when they get there, they're going to be like, hey, where's my raid? So they're trying to call it something different so that you expect something different later on. Now, whether or not that's going to work out, I don't know. I'm expecting
I seem to remember hearing this from
content.
another big MMO that tried to change the name in Guild Wars 2 way back when. On the PvE side, we got the veteran rank zones designed for solo and duo play. Now, we knew about that they existed, but we didn't have many more details besides that. So basically, at 50, you can go to the other faction zones, do all of their leveling stuff, earning veteran ranks instead of regular levels, which is kind of a crazy idea. We've seen this progression beyond Diablo. We were talking about it, right? And they instituted Paragon. You hit 60, and you still have a progression. So I could see where they got the idea, but it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of crazy inside an Elder Scrolls MMO, I think.
It's okay. The way that I see this is more along the lines of what Guild Wars 2 kind of did, where what this does is it allows you to grow your character horizontally versus vertically. You can now, instead of having arbitrarily 6 skills and abilities, you can now have 12 because you've just done another zone. Oh, and you just done the third zone. Okay, you can have 18 of them. So that's kind of the way that I see this. This is horizontal progression, and this is absolutely what I think every MMO should do, or should at least think about. Think about how are we going to expand our characters, or allow the players to expand their characters horizontally versus trying to arbitrarily or artificially add new abilities and whatnot, because they've now, instead of being 50, they're now 55. Oh, no, now they're 60. Oh, now there's, and which gets in the whole idea of power creep, whereas with horizontal progression, there's not really that much power creep anymore.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt alts too bad. I mean, it's going to kill some alts, but it doesn't hurt them too badly because most people are sticking to their guilds and their friends and their factions anyway. But the real question is it actually going to be worth doing all of that content again from one of the other factions?
No matter which way you approach it, and in some way it's going to be worth going back to at least some of those other faction zones, because if nothing else, if you don't care anything about the story and you hate the questing, there are going to be sky shards that you need to go get to get that horizontal progression and unlock more skills. But if you're into the story aspect of the game, each one of these zones has a pretty darn unique story that kind of overarches through the entire zone. And if you're playing the game like that and you're getting that out of it like you do a single player RPG, there's plenty of story to go back and see. Each zone feels like it was maybe developed by a different team, and they've all got a little different feel, and it's definitely unique enough that, you know, if you don't hate questing and you're enjoying the story, it's definitely worth going back just for that.
And hell, it beats the hell out of dailies, so.
That it does.
But you're talking about the story. I'm curious because I have no idea how this is going to work. I mean, I get the idea of go do faction 1, go do faction 2, go do faction 3, and in the beta tests, it just slipped my mind to, you know, obviously I wasn't high enough to start doing that stuff anyway to actually get a feel for how it plays out. But where do we think they're going with the story? Because you're such the hero, right? Just like every other MMO, you're the unique hero in your faction. What happens when you slide to those other factions? Are you then also the hero within those storylines, or does it play out a little differently because you're a different faction? How does it work?
Well, I think the best way to think about that is there is one overarching story in ESO that where you are the hero. The one that you get at the very beginning that starts at the tutorial. It doesn't end until like level 47, I want to say, something along that line. And that is the overarching story where you are the hero of the universe and you save the world. All right, but there are just like, for instance, going back to Guild Wars 2, there are if you know the hearts in Guild Wars 2, you go and you do missions for these guys and you fill up those hearts, and then you ultimately you fill up the whole zone, that particular zone that you're in with hearts. What's very, very similar situation with Elder Scrolls Online, except the story arc, it's not just one mission you're doing. There's actually a miniature story arc that you do, and that fills up this tower, actually, is usually what it is, or it'll be a little picture of a village or something like that on your map. So it's all these little bitty quests that you're doing that add up to the whole. You still have the overarching one that drives you from one zone to the next zone to the next zone, but you also have these other side quests that are that fill up these little icons on your map, and that's what's going to be different. Your overarching story is done. When you hit level 50, your overarching story is done. When you go to that next level or that next zone, when you play one of the other factions, you're not going to have that overarching story anymore. You're just going to have those little bitty stories that happen within the zones themselves.
So if we kind of pull that out, and again, you're on the Republic, so let's use a Star Wars example. Sure. That it almost seems like there's this big overall arcing story in the Old Republic between Alliance and the Rebel Alliance and the Empire and everything. Then there's that sidebar, which is the class quest, and it's almost likened to that kind of thing where your player's doing individual things with those environments. And it maybe ties into the main story, but it's not the main story itself.
If you want to use a SWTOR as the example, the overarching story where you're the hero of the universe, that is your class quest. Except in Elder Scrolls Online, it's not a class; it's your faction.
It's the story.
It's your overarching story. And then if you want to, each zone, well, there's actually zones within. So you have each faction zone, then you have the other smaller zones. Each one of those smaller zones is, let's say, like a planetary quest, and there are
Gotcha.
I'm forgetting. So there's like 10. I'm throwing out a number. I think that's right. There's 10 zones per faction, and each one of those zones have their own kind of little story arc. So you have 10 little bitty story arcs on for the Daggerfall Covenant. You have 10 story arcs for the Aldemary Dominion, and you have 10 story arcs for the Ebonheart Pack.
Ah, gotcha. See, I knew there was going to be a benefit. Even though you were sleepy, there was going to be a benefit. Dungeon adventure-wise, we've got 6 4-man veteran dungeons. Pretty much exactly what you expect. A group of 4, go do your thing inside there. Number too big, too small, right on? What are you feeling, Troy?
I think it's right on. We ran quite a bit of group content in the four-man dungeons during the beta weekends, and I would have to say it feels to me it feels better than 5. I like it better than 5. It's a nice mix. It's easier to get a group together, and there's not too many people running around, and you end up with a baddie or whatever. But it feels really nice, and the content's really geared really well towards a four-man group, and you feel like a complete group going in. You don't feel like you're missing a guy. So they've done a good job with it.
Yeah, when I initially saw four-man group, I was a little apprehensive about it because Final Fantasy does a four-man group, and it's readily apparent in their queue system where the weaknesses are in that. With 1 tank to 2 DPS to 1 healer, that ratio makes it really hard on DPS sometimes because there's just not enough tanks. But the thing that I'm okay with it in Elder Scrolls is the whole idea that it's not as rigidly class defined as Final Fantasy is, where a tank is a tank and nothing else. On the Elder Scrolls side of things, a tank may be kind of tanky but kind of DPS-y, and there's so much freedom in the skill set as you advance that I don't think it's going to be quite a problem, quite the problem that it is in Final Fantasy. On to the good stuff. Go ahead.
I've been taking quite a bit of content, and it's never just sitting there holding aggro on all the things. You try to concentrate on the boss, but the whole time you're bringing damage, you're bringing CC, you're bringing group buffs to the whole group, and it's not just the normal tank and spank kind of deal, boring crap when you play a tank. There's a lot more to it.
Yeah, well, if you remember going back to EverQuest, which had the original Trinity,
EverQuest was the first MMO. You heard it here first.
That's right. They didn't have a tank. There was no tank in the original Trinity. The original Trinity was it was DPS obviously and healer obviously, but they had CC. They had crowd control. That was your third part of the Trinity. And what I've seen so far from what I've seen is that Elder Scrolls, what they've done with the tank, and I don't know that they did this intentionally, but maybe they did, is that it's more they're going almost back to what EverQuest had a little bit more, by making the tank more of a crowd control kind of person than aggro control kind of person. So yes, you get aggro off the main boss and stuff like that, but for the other guys that are floating around in the ads and whatnot, well, you throw a CC on that guy over there so he doesn't hit your healer very hard, or you throw a debuff or something along that line, or you throw protection on your on the other group members and that kind of thing. So it's not exactly the same thing that you would run into in WoW. It's more like a hybrid between WoW and old EverQuest.
Yeah, it's definitely more of like a utility class, and it makes it a lot more fun.
Well, everybody copies the first MMO. Sorry, so now on to the good stuff. Craglorn. Adventure Zone, basically a regular zone, except it's tuned entirely for a group of 4. And there's replayable areas, kind of like a really, really large dungeon. And this was the piece of information that I really wanted to see more about. And I think we all did. We've heard Adventure Zones for months. And now we finally got a few details about it. I'm pretty pumped. I want to check it out. Unfortunately, this one, Craglorn's not at launch, right?
No, they're still kind of testing it. They haven't said that it's going to be at launch. They've actually gone back and forth. This is really kind of funny. And I think the last word on the subject was, nope, not going to be at launch. Because they had said, oh, no, Adventure Zones are going to be at launch. And then they first said, no, Adventure Zone's not going to be at launch. And then they were like, oh, no, it is. So we swear, it will be there. And then they went, no, wait, well, we were wrong that second time. Some intern put that press memo out. It was we're not going to have them, but so yeah, not going to be at launch, unfortunately.
Kind of obvious downsides and a lot of plus sides to having a huge open world dungeon, pretty much. I hope this doesn't end up getting phased, on a lot, to make this whole zone kind of work and feel like a flow rather than 4 people just aimlessly exploring.
How do you mean phase?
So okay, if the adventure zone has some type of point to it, right? Kill boss A, but to get there, you're going to have to probably kill bosses B, C, and D on the way. Okay.
Okay.
Can they create an adventure zone where that stuff's just out, everything's out on the game field, and players can run wherever they want, or do they have to make them phase it to force you to do bosses B, C, and D to end up getting to larger boss A?
Yeah, that's a very.
And I don't know. They could
question.
just throw it all. Hell, I kind of hope they just throw it all out there and say, if you can find a way to A without getting hit by anything else, more power to you guys. Go for it.
I was going to say we don't have a lot of details right now, but just just guessing based on what I've seen so far, it sounds more like it's just going to be kind of everything's out there. There might be some quests or something to lead you along, but right now it sounds like everything's just going to be out there to go do. Now, like I said, we just don't have a lot of detail on it right now, so that's just kind of
well, here's the other thing regarding that though, is that there are within the open world, there are phased areas, even within the regular game. So I kind of suspect that I don't know that it'll go to that extreme to where it has to be A, B, C, D, those bosses in that order that you have to kill. I don't necessarily know that it'll be to that extreme, but it might be to where if there is a quest line or something like that, for that particular quest line, you're going to have to
make the objective.
Right. And it will be phased at that point, I would think.
Yeah, I think it would have to be. Or just blocked off, which kind of defeats the idea of a whole open zone. So,
which becomes a giant dungeon.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy to me in general. The way they do phasing, is it really an open world if there's phasing involved?
Oh.
Because it's kind of instanced at that point.
How zen of you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to blow your mind.
Wow. Sense of enlightenment.
Speechless.
I know.
Speechless.
Here was the big surprise, though.
Speechless.
Big surprise, though. We got to wrap up Elder Scrolls, otherwise YouTube's going to send me nasty emails. There's a big surprise, though. Something we had only heard alluded to previously, that we will have raid-style content, but maybe not. We won't call them raids, was really all the detail we had in the past. 12-person content called Trials. Very, very interesting take on things. It almost sounds like a gauntlet or a horde mode with just waves of enemies and then boom, boss at the end, didn't it, Troy?
Yeah, that's really what it sounds like right now. It's just like a skirmish mode, and you're either standing in one spot and waves are coming at you, or you kill a wave and you take a couple of steps and then you kill another wave, and at the end, probably some sort of like a mini boss encounter that's got a few mechanics that you have to work around. I can't imagine this being anything too incredibly in depth. You would think there would be a little more detail to it if it was. But I mean,
although boss mechanics,
we don't get details anyway.
Yeah,
get details
and stuff. Boss mechanics and learning them could make this challenging, though, because of the limited resurrection abilities.
What is it challenge modes? Is that what they call it in WoW? There's challenge modes of dungeons. I want to say that's what it's called. Where basically what they do, they give you the gear. They give you. I mean, everybody's like, let's say, bolstered to a specific level, and then you're challenged to finish that dungeon in a certain amount of time, or in order to gain rewards and whatnot. And that's kind of what I see here with these trials. It's either going to be where you're given a dungeon and everybody has like an equal amount of resources, and then you just run through the dungeon as fast as you can to get the rewards at the end. Or the other possibility that I was thinking this could be is I did possibly twice, is if you've ever the cubicles in Aeon. Have you ever heard of those?
Yeah.
Which is they're kind of like what Troy was talking about, where you fight a boss and then the next you stay in one spot, then the next boss comes, and then you stay in that, and and you see how far you can get. It doesn't.
Yeah, and chat's likening it to Trial of the Crusader in World of Warcraft, which is kind of exactly what you're talking about. Go into the circular room, kill a boss, next boss comes through the doors, and kind of a gauntlet Colosseum style. It sounds intriguing. It could be very cool. It's also something that we have seen, speaking of Trial of the Crusader, that not a lot of people were a fan. So damn it, I just wish we had more information on any of this stuff.
Well, that type of content can get repetitive pretty fast. It's
Yeah.
usually pretty awesome the first couple of times you do it, but then after you've done it 3 or 4 times, you're just like, okay, I'm not going back in there anymore.
Sidebar here before we move on from Elder Scrolls, because we got 2 other things I want to talk about today. I kind of like that WildStar threw a surprise beta weekend. Probably thought maybe having a beta weekend on April 4th maybe wasn't going to get them the most players. I speculated last week that maybe they did it on purpose, though, so who knows?
Every MMO wants to be involved in every other MMO.
I'm amazed we don't have something from Blizzard releasing this weekend.
Oh, yeah, really? It's utterly surprising.
Yeah, we'll get that. It's still early on the West Coast, so give it time.
yeah, that is true. All right, we're gonna move on from Elder Scrolls, talk some Guild Wars 2, talk some Rift, but first, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, GameBreaker.tv/deals. If you haven't checked out this page, you really should. It's gonna be the financial ruin of me. I've already ordered 4 things off of this page. My wife knows about 2, and we're going to keep it that way. So, but all kinds of deals, whether you're a PC gamer, Xbox One gamer. Today we just put up the Skyrim Legendary Edition for $19. A couple other Bethesda deals are on there. Xbox One, Battlefield 4, Call of Duty Ghosts kind of got an unannounced sale today, so we put that on there as well. Obviously, we're doing the WildStar pre-order at 20% off. I think Elder Scrolls is still on here, but that one might be expired as of a few hours ago. I'll double check it when we're done with TWIMMO. If not, take advantage now, because obviously within 48 hours that game is out for early access. But WildStar, if you're planning on getting that one, right now we have it where you can save 20% off of the game cost itself. Was that better, Larry?
not 20% off your clothing,
yes.
Or 20% off 20% off the game.
This is such a great sponsor because it's, obviously we have sponsors so that we can help do what we do here for Game Breaker and make it all free to you, but anytime we can get sponsors that give you something at a better price that you were going to buy anyway, that's kind of a win-win in my book. So check it all out. There's tons there. Now, we don't always know when the deals expire. So if you find something you like, you probably want to get it as soon as you can, because all of these deals are subject to be taken down at any given point as soon as we receive word that the deal is expired. There's also multiple ways to buy things here, too. It's not just WildStar and you go to Green Man Gaming and that's it. There's multiple avenues, if they exist, that give multiple discounts. We break it all down for you. Check it out, GameBreaker.tv/deals. And right now the biggie is WildStar at 20% off. Awesome. All right, so Guild Wars 2 getting a massive update coming in April. We posted about it on GameBreaker.tv today. Robin broke it all down for us, what was going on. And look at that. Hell, we're actually talking about Guild Wars 2 on TWIMMO.
All right, we're done, right?
It's been a
On
while.
to more ESO.
Yeah, I mean, we did Guildcast, and then when Guildcast stopped, we kind of didn't have anything to talk about. Oh, yes, there is something. Bloop. There you go. You had Game Breaker deals all over your face. There were Game Breaker deals all over Larry's face and Troy's face.
Felt good for a while.
But so we don't talk a lot of Guild Wars 2, and to be honest, maybe, small patches every 2 weeks, they don't make a big splash, and if we're not doing a show on Guild Wars 2 anymore, should we cover it or not? The content patches were small. So this one's filled entirely with features, right, Troy? It's not a content update.
No, not at all. This is just quality of life stuff, and really you get the feeling that it's geared more towards the existing players who play the game consistently, and this is just some of the things they've been asking for and are looking for, and there's some nice stuff in this list of updates that they're planning.
Give me some of the lowdown here. I mean, I saw free repair costs, free trait resets. The big ones that the chats in Game Breaker back behind the scenes when all this stuff came out was the account-bound legendaries. And then the Ascended gear as well. Now, those were some of the big ones that we were talking about. What other things can we...
Dies, right?
Oh, for
Account-bound
crying out
dies.
loud.
That's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Is it really a big deal? I don't dye any of the gear in anything.
It kind of is. It actually
The only reason I got dyes in Guild Wars 2 when I played was just to sell the damn things.
Weren't we initially promised account dyes? Wasn't that like somewhere early on in beta or something?
Yeah, a long time
That was
ago.
supposed to be the plan. Yeah.
Well, and these are things like the legendaries and ascended gear being account wide. That's stuff that I remember Richie Procopio talking about on Guildcast a year ago. as a much wanted feature. So it was pretty big news when these hit. What else do we got on the plate here, Larry?
Well, the thing I was thinking, I was just remember the dye one. That one really stood out to me because I had a friend that had an Abyss dye, which I don't know if you how many people actually play much of this game, but Abyss dyes, oh my god, those are super, super rare, and they're like the blackest black that you could possibly get. And he was really upset because he wasn't sure which character he should put it on. Which character you put it on? You got a black dye. He had like 4 alts, so which is actually the point of Guild Wars 2. I think is to create as many alts as you possibly can, and
that's the end game.
I think so. I think it is. Really.
If you're not into PvP, that's the end game.
Forget fractals. Those, alts. That's the way to go. Anyway, yeah, so that was the one that really stood out to me. I mean, I know there's obviously the legendary gear and all that kind of stuff. That's important for people who, like to group up and talk to other people.
Wardrobe system. Right. Looking for group tool. That's a big one. Well, a better looking for group tool.
What? Looking for group in Guild Wars 2? No.
Something that players will actually use in Guild Wars 2?
Remember when it was just a site? You had to tab out of the game to go to the site and find a group and then come back into the game. New traits, a ton of balance changes, right, Troy? You're more the Guild Wars 2 guy than I am.
Yeah.
So I had a falling out with Guild Wars 2, and it wasn't Guild Wars 2's fault. See, now what had happened was...
so you blame Guild Wars 2 for it. That is so unfair.
No, I just said it's not their fault, damn it.
Yeah, but they're the one that has to deal with
so
the kids.
Gamebreaker Nation was on Yak's Bend, right? And I was not.
Oh, here we go. Story time.
Yeah, it is story time. And so I said, I don't want to pay. It was like, what, $18, I think, for a character transfer? I said, I don't want to pay $18. And I had a 75 Necromancer. I don't know why I never capped it. I just stopped at 75. And I was like, it's not level capped. It's 5 levels away. I really don't want to pay $18 to transfer. There's got to be another way to do this. And then when I found out that all the updates that made the wallet, account bound and all that stuff. So I put all of my inventory in the bank, right? And deleted all of my characters. And then rolled a new one on Yak's Bend and reclaimed my stuff from the bank and everything. And I'm thinking, I got it made. I'll start leveling again. That was the fun part of Guild Wars for me anyway, so I'm good, right? Until I start realizing that my additional bag slots are gone. All those things that I had purchased from the gem store that were character specific were gone. And to save my...
All your dyes are gone.
The dyes. I was brokenhearted about the dyes. To save myself,
$18 doesn't sound so bad.
Right, to save myself $18, I had to spend $65. It was like I haven't played it since then. I was just so brokenhearted about that. But I'm thinking about coming back. And so my question for you two guys is, ArenaNet obviously puts a lot into their patches. There's no doubt about that. They do them quickly. Every couple of weeks, we're getting something. Do you think this sort of patch is enough to bring people like me that haven't played in a few months back into the game, or does it take content to do that?
Honestly, I feel like this is geared more towards the existing players, and that once all the noise is kind of settled over the couple of launches over the next couple of months, they're going to come back with some additional new content ideas, and I think that's what's going to be geared towards bringing some players who may have stepped away back into the game. I think everything here is just kind of to make everybody that's in the game happy and the changes they want to see. That's my opinion.
This is definitely a dance with the one you brought patch, which is, they need those. I mean, honestly, every game needs those, not just Guild Wars 2. But so I think that's a good idea. They need that. Do it.
So this is a dance with the one you brought patch.
Yep.
So we've had the Jesus patch was Star Wars. Guild Wars 2 now has the dance with the one you brought patch. It's nice. Although, however, April probably isn't the best month. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. April probably isn't the best month to try and bring new players back. So maybe this was very, very well timed. This was very well timed. They're like, we're not going to pull anybody new, so let's not drop the content. Let's put this stuff that we've been working on for years and finally put it in the game.
They're definitely saving that for when it's going to be much more effective a few months down the road.
Yeah. After everybody gets their, after we see what veteran game is like.
Yes.
Also in the MMO news, big news. If you weren't doing pre-show, you missed it. I was showing the trailer for this. Rift fans, I don't even have to ask Troy because Troy and I have played Rift together on many an occasion.
Yep.
Are you a Rifter, Larry?
No, I'm bad. I like Rift, but
shame.
Yeah, I'm bad. I couldn't level up in Rift. I actually did. Yeah, I won't get into it because I don't want to dog on Rift. I think it's a decent game, and I love the people that play it.
I keep putting something over Larry's camera. I'm so sorry. Chat's already called me Mike Shaffnet once.
Oh, goodness. Larry, like what Larry just said, that's a perfect example of Rift is the most underrated MMO on the market right now. You get in and you just think it's a WoW clone and everything's going to be just like WoW because there's a lot of gameplay similar to World of Warcraft. But there's so much more to this game
Here we go.
that they've added so much more. There's so many different types of things in Rift that it blows everything else out of the water, in my opinion. And
all right.
It doesn't get the credit it deserves.
Oh, here we go.
No, I actually agree with Troy. I mean, the aspects that I don't like about Rift are the same things that I don't like about WoW. So, but I think WoW is a great game. I think Rift is a great game. In fact, I think in some ways, because of the, for instance, the dimensions that we're about ready to talk about, and also in PvP, I think that it is a better game than WoW is. So, I have to give it credit.
That's already on Twitter. Rift is better than WoW. Larry Everett, 2014.
There we go.
Right.
It's already up there.
That's all we were waiting for.
Yeah, and I love Rift, and Troy, you know that. You and Q and I and a number of the Game Breaker Nation folks, we play there and we make nights of it and just go Rift hunting to try and get Hellbug mounts or whatever the newest shiny is. But I do agree with both of you. The whole leveling game is so World of Warcraft that about halfway through you're like, just come on, can I please be finished with this? Could I just get me to max level? I don't want to do this anymore. And then when you do get to max level, there's all kinds of extra things to do, one of which are the dimensions. If you don't know, for those that don't know, dimensions are Rift's version of player housing, but it's not just a house. It's kind of, you get a plot of land, depending on what you buy. You get a certain plot of land somewhere in the Aether, and you collect items to put in that plot of land, either from the cash shop, from performing different achievements, from doing different quests. You'll get tables and chairs and all kinds of funky things that you can put in your house. Very, very, very flexible creation system. You can operate in all three dimensions, rotate no problem. People have created ridiculous jumping puzzles in their dimensions. It's not just player housing. It's always been, for a guy that's not real big on player housing, it's always been a pretty cool feature. I go into a dimension or two, and then going in and seeing some of the other dimensions that people are creating, I'm like, shit, I'm not creative at all. But they finally, and it's funny because we mentioned this, I mentioned it last week on TWIMMO when we were talking about housing, Larry, that Rift, I couldn't remember if they had just done it or were just going to do PvP in dimensions. So now what you can do is create a whole map of your own and do a PvP battle in your dimension. This has got to be a very, very cool thing, even for people that aren't into player housing, right? This opens that whole dimension system up to a ton more of the player base.
And now the developers they're done. They don't have to do any more PvP.
On a totally unrelated note, Tryon fired all the PvP staff today. That is false. That did not happen. That is not news. It is not alleged. It did not happen. But Troy, you've been waiting for this along with a lot of Rifters for a while now because it's been something they've been vocal about trying to do for quite some time. It's finally in the game. Are you making an arena?
I don't know if I'm going to make an arena or not, but I know one thing for sure. If you've spent time like I have just going to other people's housing dimensions and just looking at all the awesome things they've done, I'm definitely going to go in and jump into some other people's arenas because I just enjoy seeing what everybody else creates. And the things that the players create are absolutely phenomenal. There are some just spectacular things that these players make, and I just don't have the time or the ability to create awesome things like that, but I sure do love going in and enjoying other people's stuff.
On a separate note, Rift probably had the best free-to-play conversion I've ever seen, going from their sub to their free-to-play. Since then, there's been one or two items on the cash shop, particularly for events, that I have been a little upset with because they're very RNG related, and I don't like that in my cash shop. You know, I want to know what I'm spending money on, for crying out loud. I don't want to buy a lottery ticket from Tryon. But to me, they had the best conversion over to free-to-play. And Troy, you said it dead on. They've put so much into the game that if you stopped prior to Storm Legion, it's not even the same game.
Oh yeah, you have no idea what you're missing. If you haven't played since Storm Legion,
oh shit, they're here for Larry.
They're here.
Oh no. J.J. Abrams is suing you for the lens flare.
For the lens flare.
Dang it! You stole his movie, Larry. It's all in your background. You're going to jail.
Well, needless to say, Tryon has had a bit of a rocky year, late last year and into this year. End of Nation disappears. I forget the name of the shooter that they were going to publish. That kind of disappeared off of their website too. It's been a little rocky year with some layoffs and some hiring here and there, but they do have ArcheAge coming up, which we talked about last week. Do you think they can start to turn that boat around, Larry? I mean, they're a great company, no doubt. I love them to death.
Absolutely. I hope so. I think the thing is, I know with Rift they missed. I think they missed a lot of opportunity with free to play. I think it was great, mind you, but I don't think there was a lot of ways for them to make money with free to play because honestly they gave away everything. So
I would argue to the contrary a little bit, only because I still sub to Rift right now, and I have for a couple of years now. But when it went free to play, for the first 5 months I spent 4 times my sub on things in the cash shop. Just because, and Ix in chat is saying that him and I know that the cash shop very well. Yes, because it was slowly becoming a competition on who was going to sink more money into their cash shop to get these other things. And then they've got Trove on the horizon too. Yeah, which I'm hopeful.
Hopefully they can. I have high hopes for him. I love Scott Hartzman. He's one of the best people on the planet. Seriously, if you've not met Scott Hartzman, the CEO over there, everybody loves him. Everybody that's ever met him loves him. Unless maybe they work for him. I don't know. Maybe they don't love him. But anybody who has just met him loves him. He's a great guy. So I really have high hopes for them and wish them well.
Troy, are they going to right this boat with ArcheAge and Trove?
I really hope so because I really love the company. They do a lot of things well. They're catching a lot of flack right now because there's not a lot of information about ArcheAge. I really don't think that's entirely their fault. They've got a Q&A up today, though, on the forums that was getting pretty interesting. There were a lot of questions being answered. I was trying to read through some of that before we started.
They were giving away alpha, too.
They were giving away alpha. That could mean we are very, very close. So it's going to be interesting to see how a sandbox performs because everybody seems to want sandbox, but yet sandboxes don't always perform like you would expect them to. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how that plays out once we do start getting into alpha and beta.
Mr. Troy Blackburn, you can follow him on the Twitters at NoobFridge, NoobFridge, NoobFridge. Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure. What an awesome host. I think we might have to have you back.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Mr. Larry Everett from Massively.com and right here on Gamebreaker's own The Republic, which airs on... What is it, Thursdays usually?
Thursdays.
I don't even know the day anymore. It changes so often.
Thursdays at 6 Pacific is when it is generally scheduled.
Also doing all the Elder Scrolls writing that you could ever ask for. Follow him on Twitter at Shadow, SHADDOE, and he'll be sure to point you at what he's doing lately. I'm Mike Byrne, a.k.a. Magic Man. You can follow me on Twitter at MagicMan1, MAGICKMANN. Don't forget the one at the end. Speaking of the Game Breaker Nation and Elder Scrolls, that's it. Early access, 2 days away. The Game Breaker Nation will be doing a launch party. And yes, they will be doing it at a time dictated by ZeniMax's crazy-ass launch windows. So this party will be going live March 30th at 4 in the morning Eastern, 1 in the morning Pacific. Your hosts will be Zista, Angwar, Spirix, and Swift. Check it out. That's not on this stream. It's on twitch.tv/GBNation. And if you aren't a member of the Game Breaker Nation, get on it. It's a lot of fun. Cross Gaming Guild, Mumble, you can come hang out with us. It's a blast. Until next time, gang, stay safe, and we'll see you out on the servers.